Okay, Johnny Tremain by Esther Forbes, illustrated by Lynd Ward, and published by Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. And we are just in chapter 8, so we started that in the last video, and it's a world to come. And section 1 was kind of what happened after the lights had gone out into the country. So Mrs. Bessie, the cook and housekeeper, had said to Johnny, you know, hey, we're going to go out into the country so that we can relax and with the other Tory families that are out there. And but then the Patriots, the rebels, had kind of this secret plan to attack the Light family. And so Mrs. Bessie kind of turned the tide and said to the Lights, hey, I heard in town that these people are going to come for you, so we need to hustle back into town, into Boston, where all the British soldiers are, so they can protect you. So then this mob comes out to the family, to the house, and then they kind of chase them all the way from, it's like 7 miles through the countryside from the Lights mansion in the country into the city of Boston, going right up to the neck. And that's where the soldiers are, and there's a gate there. And at this point, Johnny knew it was going to happen, and so then he sees when the Ruby coach comes hobbling up because they had lost a wheel, and they're just dragging. I mean, everything is just in terrible shape. And Miss Lavinia's all in a tizzy about her father, who had had a fit, a seizure. And so Dr. Warren was called. She only wanted Dr. Warren, even though he's a patriot, he's the best doctor. And she was very concerned for his health. And Scylla says, you know, in a frenzy, I couldn't get the silver. I was trying to pack everything up. And Miss Lavinia says, you know, oh, it's whatever. You don't have to go. It's probably already been stolen by the rebels. But Scylla wants to go back because she feels like she let the family down. And Johnny says he will go with her. So Johnny and Scylla got a pass from both sides, from the British soldiers and from the Patriots or the rebels, so that Dr. Warren's chaise with Johnny and Scylla can go back to the Lights mansion and pick up the silver. And so that's where we left them, was the little mare, the doctor's little rabbit-eared mare, flung herself forward. It would not take such a fast pacer long to get to Milton, so they're headed out to Milton. Here is section 2. Although once or twice the Light chaise slurred as it caught in great ruts made by the disabled Light coach, there was no other sign of the late violence. The mob was utterly gone. It was not until they reached Roxbury that they knew the time. The village clock struck 2. Thus far they had not met one single human being. But here were a few turbulent fellows hanging about an inn door, and in Milton itself they were signaled to stop by a group whose faces they never did see. But Dr. Warren's chaise and horse were recognized. Go ahead, Warren. Good luck, Warren. They went up the steep road from Milton. It was here Mr. Light had his country seat. And that's a county seat is like where the city government has its offices, where the county government has its offices, like the courthouse. And so the country seat would just be the home in the country. Then Johnny got out, struck tinder, and lighted the lantern he had found in the chaise. He stood by the entrance gates. Yes, Scylla was right. They had smashed the arms carved upon the gates. The poor people of Milton had had enough of that rising eye. Johnny wasn't sure, but he had as well. He walked ahead, and Scylla drove the horse. Thus, half seen and in the dark, things did not look too bad. Scylla had a key to the back door, which showed hatchet marks, but was not broken down. They went into the dining room, and from the lantern Scylla lit the candles in the 2 candelabra on the table, 20 candles in all, and the room filled with light. Fear had overcome the lights as they had sat down to eat. Bread broken and never eaten. The roast of beef with Yorkshire pudding sticking in the cold gravy. A bowl of salad was still fresh. Wine in the slender goblets. Already the great house did not seem to have been abandoned for a few hours only, but for years. It was as if a witchcraft had been worked upon it. Johnny saw that Scylla had started to get the silver together. "Where's Mrs. Bessie?" "She left earlier than we did, in a farm cart, but, she'll be all right." Scylla went to work packing the silver, and she built up a little fire on the kitchen hearth so she might have hot water to wash the dishes. Neat by nature, she would leave the house tidy. Johnny took the lantern he had left on the kitchen table and walked through the silent house. He could see that every window in the lower floor had been broken, but no one had entered. He went upstairs, Lavinia's room, and strewed about it things he had never seen before: stays, kerchiefs, patchboxes, ribbons, fripperies. It smelled faintly of lavender. He went to Mr. Light's room. The great four-poster soared to the ceiling. That's a big bed with 4 posts at the corners. A damask dressing gown and Mr. Light's best wig on a wig rest. Off the big chamber and 1 step down was a smaller room designed as a dressing room. Mr. Light seemingly had used this as an office. Here was his desk, and above it a painting of his favorite ship, the Unicorn. And here, judging by the tipped-over chair and the rumpled rugs, Mr. Light had had his all but fatal fit. Now, he did not die. I know some kids had said, "Did he die?" No, he did not, but he had a fit or a seizure. It had caught him as he had been packing his more important papers he wished no one to see. Johnny picked up what looked like a leather-bound book. It had been hollowed out, turned into a box. In a bookcase, no one would suspect it. He glanced at the papers within. Every one of them he saw Sam Adams would be thankful to get. These he put in his pocket. Other books were scattered on the floor. Johnny picked up a heavy Bible, hoping that this, too, would prove to be a box. He put it on the desk and opened it. There were sheets of paper between the Old and New Testaments. Here a man might write his genealogy. Now, genealogy is the study of your lineage or where you come from. It's like in a family Bible, it's very traditional for hundreds of years, thousands of years, to write in the first few pages your family history. I am so-and-so. My parents are my mother and my father. My mother's parents are these people. My father's parents are these people. And then through that means your genealogy, where you come from, is written in a Bible. So Johnny has come across the family Bible. So the first Jonathan Light had been born in Kent in 16-something, and he had married a Matilda something, had come to Boston and had 4 sons and 3 daughters, and they, all 7, had sons and daughters, and so on. Now he was coming to the generation in which he might expect to find his own mother. Here, indeed, was Merchant Light himself and his daughter Lavinia, the 2 sons who had drowned at Guadalupe, the girls dead in infancy. He even found that Aunt Bert, who had stayed on at Boston with her own servant. He found one Lavinia Light after another. One married an Endicott and one an Otis. Neither was the right age for his mother. Scratched out in such a way, he had at first thought it was a mere decoration on the elaborately written page. There was another name. It was Lavinia Light. He held the lantern closer. Born 1740. Married to Dr. Charles Latour, both of whom had died of plague in Marseille shortly before his own birth. His mother had told him he had been born in France and that his father had died before his own birth. But why Dr. Charles Latour? And why had his mother's name been scratched off the family record? But nevertheless, this was the spot, the very spot where he might hang his own few meager leaves to the light tree. Although in his daydreaming he had often pictured himself a nephew, grandnephew, or even a grandson of Merchant Light, he had never once believed the relationship was that close. Now he checked over the generations. His grandfather, Roger Light, dead now for 20 years and builder of this very house, had been the younger brother of Jonathan Light. Johnny himself was the merchant's grandnephew. Dun, dun, dun. Oh my gosh. He took his knife from his pocket and cut the pages from the family Bible. Sometime they might be of use to him. Scylla was calling him. She wanted him to help her carry the heavy boxes and hampers of silver to the chaise. On the sideboard, as yet unpacked, stood the 4 standing cups of the lights. "Which one is yours, Johnny?" He looked over them carefully. Only a silversmith could have told them apart. The base of one had been ever so little bent and straightened again. "This is my cup." "Take it now." "No." He set it down and turned restlessly to Scylla. He could not say to anyone what went through his mind, not to Scylla, not even to himself. He acted and spoke blindly. "It's no good to me. We've moved on to other things. But it isn't stealing to take back what Mr. Light stole from you. I don't want it." "What?" "No, I'm better off without it. I want nothing of them. Neither their blood nor their silver. I'll carry that hamper for you, Syl. Mr. Light can have the old cup." "But your mother?" "She didn't like it either." He came back when he had left the hamper and stopped by the kitchen hearth. Scylla had built up a little fire of faggots to heat water. Remember, little pieces of wood for a fire. He put his 2 hands on the mantelpiece and his forehead on his hands. He stood like that a long time. His grandfather had built this great house. His mother had played on the floor of this kitchen. Was it here his father had come? His father, the French doctor? Dr. Latour, the Bible had it. Here was mystery surely. Why not Dr. Tremain? And why had the Bible said both he and Lavinia Light died of plague in Marseille? 1758, 3 months before he himself had been born. Does it matter? Does it or doesn't it? No. He answered his own question aloud and took from his pocket the heavy pages he had cut from the Bible, all written over with the names of his genealogy. He could not think now why he had ever cut them out. Slowly tearing each sheet to ribbons, he fed them to the fire upon the hearth. And there goes his genealogy, the written record. Then Scylla was asking him to close and fasten all the heavy shutters through the house. This would protect the interior a little, in spite of broken window panes. His footsteps echoed through the vast, silent reaches of the house. One after another, the heavy shutters slammed to, and he bolted them. A protest of unused hinges, and then a bang, and he went on to the next, the echo of his own footsteps. "My grandfather built this house. My mother knew it and loved it. My father dead before ever I was born. Now, for as long as it stood, this would be a haunted house." He felt the ghosts waiting in darkness until he and Scylla were gone before they stepped forth to take possession. Merchant Light? Soon enough, he too would be back here. Miss Lavinia? She might live to be 100, but the time would come when, wilt she or not, she must return to this house. this haunted house with its thin wreath of wraiths and his mother's among them. He had seen her face, heard her voice so clearly that night he had lain by her grave on Copp's Hill. He thought of her with love and a tender understanding, an understanding he had been too young to give when she had died. But he left the haunted chambers, echoing halls, and went gladly to the kitchen where Scylla was, for the dead should not look at the living, nor the living too long upon the dead. Scylla, unaware of his emotions, looked about her with satisfaction. She had finished her work. Now it will be in good order when the lights come back. Johnny felt sad. He went to her and put his arms about her and his thin cheek against her hair. Scylla, they won't ever come back. Never? No. This is the end. The end of one thing, the beginning of something else. They won't come back because there is going to be a war, a civil war, and we'll win. First, folk like them get routed out of Milton, then out of Boston, and the cards are going to be reshuffled, dealt again. Shall I shutter the kitchen too? Yes. Each time a shutter groaned, protested, and then came to with a bang. It seemed to say, "This is the end." And the words echoed through the house, "This is the end. This is the end." My mother played on the floor of this kitchen. My grandfather was but a young man when he built this house, and I, a grandson, have better right to it, doubtless, than an elder brother. The house was still filled with midnight and ghosts, but as they closed and locked the heavy kitchen door behind them, they saw it was close upon dawn. "It is like a funeral," Scylla whispered, "only worse." So he knew that much of what he had been feeling. Scylla had also felt. Along down Old Country Road, marching through the meager half-light of the new day, came a company of Minutemen, up and out early, drilling for coming battles before it was yet the hour to get to their chores. Left, right, left, right, left. They did not march too well. A boy no bigger than Dusty Miller had put a fife to his lips, was trying to blow it. He made awkward little toodles. The men marched on past the defaced gates of the Lights country seat, never turning to look at them or Dr. Warren's chaise with Scylla and Johnny under the hood. Oh, God help them, thought Johnny. They haven't seen those British troops in Boston. I have. They haven't seen the gold lace on the generals, those muskets, all so alike, and everyone has a bayonet. They haven't seen. The chaise overtook and passed the marching farmers. That's the end of section 2 and the end of this video. Subscribe and come back and watch cool math videos or more of Johnny Tremain.